Sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry, but I guess you know now. Baby, I took a half and she took the whole thing. Slow down. Baby, we took a trip, now we on your block and it's like a ghost town. Baby, where did these be at when they say they doing all this and all that? Tired of beefing you bums, you can't even pay me enough to react. Been waking up in the crib and sometimes I don't even know where I'm at. Please don't pay that songs in this party, I can't even listen to that. Anytime that I run into somebody, it must be a victory lap. Hey, shawty come sit on my lap. Hey, they saying Drizzy just snap. This in between us is not like a store, this isn't a closable gap. Hey, I see some attack and don't end up making it back. I know that they at the crib going crazy down bad. What they had didn't last, damn baby. Sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry, but I guess you know now. Baby, I took a half and she took the whole thing. Slow down. Baby, we took a trip, now we on your block and it's like a ghost town. Baby, where did these be at when they say they doing all this and all that?
I'm in the trenches, relax. Can you not pet that little boy in the club? Cause we do not listen to rest. We in Atlanta, I buy her wig, she telling me Tay is the best. Pointed at who act like a killer, but you only one from the net. I'm like the baby, I'm not just a rapper. You play with me, you gon' get stretched. Bring Drake to the hood, surround Drake around. Even though I got a case, I'ma do what it take.
And I never been embraced, and the money's hard to make, so I bet they on their face right now. I know that they at the crib going crazy down bad. What they had didn't last, damn baby. Sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry, but I guess you know now. Baby, I took a half and she took the whole thing. Slow down. Baby, we took a trip, now we on your block and it's like a ghost town. Baby, where did these be at when they say they doing all this and all that? When he tell the story, that's not how it went. No, they be lying 100%. Moved out of the wrist and forgot about the bend. Now they just called me to tell me come get it. Now that boy off and I don't want no credit. If it was me, they wouldn't regret it. Left me for dead and now they won't dead it. Yeah. Heart is still beating, my still eating. Backyard it look like the garden eating. Pillow talk with him, she spilling the tea. And then shawty came back and said she didn't mean it. It's hard to believe it. I know that they at the crib going crazy down bad. What they had didn't last, damn baby. Sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry, but I guess you know now. Baby, I took a half and she took the whole thing. Slow down. Baby, we took a trip, now we on your block and it's like a ghost town. Baby, where did these be at when they say they doing all this and all that?
The sun goes down, the stars come out, and all that counts is here and now. My universe will never be the same. I'm glad you came.
Cast a spell on me, spell on me. You hit me like the sky fell on me, fell on me.
And I decided you look well on me, well on me. So let's go somewhere no one else can see you and me. Turn the lights out now, now I'll take you by the hand. Hand you another drink, drink it if you can. Can you spend a little time? Time is slipping away, away from us, so stay. Stay with me, I can make you glad you came. The sun goes down, the stars come out, and all that counts is here and now. My universe will never be the same. I'm glad you came, I'm glad you came. You cast a spell on me. You hit me like the sky fell on me. And I decided you look well on me. So let's go somewhere no one else can see you and me. Turn the lights out now, now I'll take you by the hand you another drink, drink it if you can. Can you spend a little time? Time is slipping away, away from us, so stay, stay with me, I can make you glad you came. The sun goes down, the stars come out, and all that counts is here and now. My universe will never be the same. I'm glad you came, I'm glad you came. I'm glad you came. So glad you came. I'm glad you came.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing today? Thank you for coming and joining us at the virtual drivers meeting. So before we start, I'm just going to go over a few details. So just so you guys know, the venue is going to be 365 Father Tobin Road, Brampton, and the school is called Lewis Harbor Secondary School. And yeah, just make it there around 8:30. That's when check-in happens. So I'll just read the agenda out. 8:30 check-in, pits open, inspection opens. Then 9:30 inspection's gonna close, so make sure you guys get inspected before 9:30 because we're gonna be running on a tight schedule. We have to get out of the venue pretty early, so after inspection, we're gonna start the opening ceremony instantly. And then since we already did the driver's meeting, we won't have to do that again. 10 a.m. qualification matches begin and skills field open. And then after that, at 1 o'clock, we're gonna take a 30-minute lunch break. And 4:45, we're gonna be doing qualification matches. We're gonna end those, and then that's when the skills fields will also close. And 5 p.m. alliance selection is gonna begin, and we want all teams present in the main competition area. Okay. At 5:45, elimination matches will end, and then we're gonna give the judge awards out. And then at 6:30, we're gonna have the final match and the final award. So thank you for joining us now. Now I'm just going to hand it over to the head ref and make sure you guys get any questions out. And if you haven't put any questions in the forum, please send them in the chat because we're going to get the ref to answer those for you guys.
I'm Aiden McNamee. I've done a couple head reffing stuff. Let me know if you guys can hear me. I think I should be good, but if you can't hear me, if I'm a little low, if I'm a little loud, just let me know. But yeah, I've done a couple robotics competitions before, quite a few, in last year and in a couple other previous years. So you might have seen me around a couple times, but I used to be in VEX quite a bit, 4 or 5 years ago now. It seems like time is flying. But yeah, we're here today just to talk about the rules, any important rules that you guys might have had questions about, and going forward. So you might be able to see me in the bottom. I have the rules put up in front of me. Chico did a great job kind of covering a lot of the information regarding the actual event itself. But we did have a form. If you haven't had a chance to fill it out, make sure you fill in that form if you have any specific questions for me. I've written down some rules we want to cover over. I got about 8 or so that we want to touch on today. I do want to exercise and just say the expectation is that you have already read the game manual version 2.1. Most recent update was on October 3rd, so a little while ago now. Make sure you understand the game manual, understand the rules, the scoring, the game, where your starting position is, all that stuff. If you have any specific questions regarding that, please let me know. But otherwise, the basic game rules, I'm trusting that you guys know. So when we show up on Saturday, we're running right into the tournament and we're doing good. Let's jump right into some of the questions that we had. So first of all, yeah, actually, before we get to the first one, I don't have all the answers for every question. I definitely have, I think, covered most of the important questions that we might have seen. But if you do have questions that I don't know, I will be more than happy to research them to be sure. But the most significant question we saw a whole bunch of times, not only in this, but in previous, Q&As on the forum and all that stuff is regarding G16. So for holding, there has been a slight little change this year. So they've outlined holding, trapping, pinning, lifting, all those different things. So I just want to go over that really quickly for everyone's sake. So a robot may not hold an opposing robot for more than a 5 count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once I reach 5, if I'm saying 5 out loud, that's more than likely, depending on the circumstances or all that stuff, I want to couch all my statements in that may result in a more than likely a disqualification. So make sure you're being very careful when I'm speaking out loud. I'll try my best to say, red robot or this robot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm trying to outline it. It's a loud environment though, so just make sure you're looking out for those counts during the match. And one thing that we had a lot of questions on, and I've seen in previous years that people may not understand, is the rules or the conditions where holding is no longer being enforced. And that's where, and they have it outlined here wonderfully in the rules, that 2 robots are separated by at least 2 feet. So they're moving 1 foam tile away, and they become pinned by a different robot, or an avenue escape becomes available. And also, I just want to add here, they have to be actively working to try and move away. So we've seen this in a lot of other competitions this year, where we'll see maybe one robot that's match loading, and we'll get to match loading and some of the rules for that soon. But we've seen robots that are trying to match load and don't really care that they're being pushed. Maybe they're pinned into a wall and they're just firing away. That's not going to be holding, because the robot is not trying to get away at that point. So it's just not going to be one of those things. You have to be actively engaged in trying to get away with that kind of stuff. And also a big thing I want to point about is the holding rule here. The robot may not resume holding the same robot again for another 5 count. So some people have this confused where I'll count down. So for example, if you got to 4, I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they backed away. And then they count down. I'm like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. People assume that if I get to like 2, they can re-engage, and that's going to be where my count starts again. So I'll start at 2 and count back up to 5. That's not the case. If you re-engage during that 5 count at all, it will resume at whatever the count where it ended. This can really catch people out, where people are not ready or assuming that their count kind of went away. So I will visually, when you see me at the tournament, if I'm counting you out, I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I'm getting close and then you back away, I will have my hand up in the air and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Once my hand goes back down, that's when that separate count can go away. So you can look to me if you are trying to play a very defensive robot style to try and do that. And I will make sure as much as I possibly can to be doing that counting out loud, so you guys know when it is safe to re-engage. If you are chancing it, once again, this is towards the offensive robot. If we're chancing it and you're going back in too soon, that is a risk you're willing to take, right? So just please keep that in mind when you're doing any trapping, very big defensive actions. Just keep that kind of stuff in mind. Let me go back to trapping. Once again, I just want to show the holding definition. So we have holding, which includes trapping, pinning, and lifting. I think lifting is a new version from either last year or this year's game manual. It was not the case, but we saw a lot of robots with ramps. So if you are a ramp robot and you're lifting a robot by kind of just going under them and pushing them up so that they cannot move, that is also going to be another version of holding that might not have been previously covered in previous years. So just make sure you're really looking out for that. Another big question that we had, and once again, if you're listening to me and you're saying, hey, Aiden, none of this matters, you I already know all this stuff, that's good, first of all. But if you have specific other questions that you want me to cover, you can either put them in the chat or, and I'll look at the chat in a second, or Chiku will look at it for me, or you can submit it via the form that they already put in the chat. So do one of those two things and we'll get to your questions if you have any specific ones in a second. Another big thing that I saw some questions on, and actually one of the big questions we had in our forum was regarding this issue, I think, is SG11. This is another area where I think people might get caught out on Saturday, so I really want to hype on it today. Elevation is protected during the last 30 seconds of the match. Robots may not contact, and I'm going to go over this painfully slow, so make sure everyone understands this. The opposing alliance's elevation bars, that is the vertical and horizontal bar. Opposing robots who are contacting their elevation bars. So that same thing. So if a robot is contacting the elevation bar, the robot itself becomes protected. Opposing robots who meet the definition of elevated. So if they're lifted at all, makes sense. We know the definition of elevated, I hope. And then this is one I really want to hype in: the short barriers adjacent to the alliance's elevation bars. So these are these bars. Do you see the small bars? I can find, yeah, here. These are the short bars. This is where I've seen some of the US tournaments, especially where I think during the qualification matches, usually some teams are getting caught out. They know of the rule where the vertical and the horizontal bar are protected. They know that the robot that is hanging is protected, but they don't know that these short bars are also being protected by this rule, by SG11. So what happens is a lot of times you'll be having a very fair fight, pushing back and forth like this. And in the last 30 seconds happens, and if two robots are in these tiles here pushing against each other, and you're fighting constantly back and forth, you may be contacting that short bar in the last 30 seconds, and that other team can come to me and say, hey, they're touching that short bar, they're impeding my elevation, they should be DQ'd. So that gets into a really sticky scenario where in the last 30 seconds, obviously be very careful. I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's not my job as the head ref. What I will say is I want you to be very careful when you're in these two tiles, or honestly anywhere around these two short bars, because if you get into a scenario where one team can say, hey, look, they impeded my elevation because they were sitting there touching those bars or sitting there touching the pole, I mean, that's a bit of a scary scenario. This was covered in a Q&A regarding what is allowable. I highly recommend, if everyone hasn't, we'll get to these two big Q&As here. But if you haven't taken a look at some of the Q&As, I think 1725 is the one. This one describes a scenario of where it's okay to kind of stop a robot from elevating in terms of if they're just pushing them away. If a robot is trying to block them from doing that without touching any of the bars, they've already answered this question, and they outline a scenario where that is fine, where they're not touching the bars. However, while this is correct, while you can, in a way block someone from getting to the elevation zone and playing some very fierce defense, just be very careful when it comes to any of these bars that you're not going to cause yourself to get DQ'd. I will pause here for just 2 seconds. Chiku, do we have any questions regarding anything we've covered so far? We should be good, I think. Okay, perfect, cool. So if anyone has any questions throughout, put them in the chat, put them on the forum, just let me know. Okay, so going on to our next one. So that was SG11 we just covered. Now we're going on to the next one, which is SG6. And a lot of questions regarding this too, which is match loads. So I put a question on the forum too, because I was looking and interested in some stuff. And we have a wonderful post, very recent post from 2 days ago, regarding how do I judge if a match load maneuver is safe? And is my hypothetical match load design / strategy allowed? I cannot possibly go into all the depths that they've already answered in this question, but if you are doing any match loads, which I assume most of you are, please read both of those Q&A posts, because they go into a great deal to answer all these questions about how I'm going to be judging and how other teams are going to be operating match loads safely or not. The good rule of thumb is, I'll just try and be very quick and summarize this, is please be safe. Right, so this whole one is going to be about what is excessive, unnecessary, or unsafe. Remember, this is at my discretion, head ref's discretion. At any point where I feel anything is unsafe, I'm going to come down pretty hard on it. They outline here what is good, what is probably fine, and what is bad. They have a bunch of wonderful examples too. Make sure you click on the examples. But more often than not, be gentle with how you're placing things on the robot. Don't be throwing a whole bunch of tri-balls at the robot at the same time. Don't have two match loads over the field perimeter. They have a great example here. I'll show you where they have, so this is the fine version. So they're one at a time loading it. See that? Only one is over the time at any given time. And an illegal example would be like this. See how there's so many tri-balls that are being loaded over the field perimeter at any given time? That's not going to be okay. The whole purpose of match loading is you can be fast, that's totally fine, but you want to make sure that you're doing it gently, not excessively, not unsafely, and also not like tossing the tri-balls onto the field. I know that there's a lot of competitive energy. Obviously, I've competed in the past too. You want to win. That's entirely fair. But I've seen in some live streams from some of the US events as well, where teams are so excited to get those tri-balls on the field. Maybe they're trying to do a push. I've seen that mostly with push bots or plowing. Sorry, I want to use the correct term, that are plowing tri-balls to the other side of the field, where they're, instead of trying to just put them on the robot, they're basically kind of tossing them ahead of the robot. They're not even touching the robot. And that's something that's not going to be okay. If you have not read the rule SG6, there is 2 different ways to give or provide the match loads, for your robot. One of them is placing them gently into the match load zone. Can be done anytime during the driver controlled period. Remember, not auton. That obviously can be done. That's perfectly fine if your robot wants to just pick up from there. One that I'm probably going to see more often, it's probably a more competitive strategy, is placing the match loads gently, notice the word gently there again, onto the drive team members' alliance robot. So they have to be contacting the match load zone. Really want to hype on that. So this is the bar. If you are match loading, you need to be touching the bar. If someone pushes you off the bar and you're like in the middle of match loading, that's fine. They talk about momentary, like losing contact, whatever. But it is your job that if you start getting shoved away and you're no longer touching, you can't just continue loading and say, hey, look, the opponent is pushing me away. That's why they're causing me to be illegal. That's not okay. So make sure if you are match loading at all times, you're touching that bar, and then you're making sure you're completely legal, or that your robot is breaking the plane. That's what they have this little line here for. If your robot is breaking the plane inside, that is only, they outline it here as well. It's for benefit of the doubt. They may only be introduced during the driver control period, and this breaking the plane cannot be the sole purpose. So which relies solely on breaking the plane with no intent of the robot ever contacting the match load bar is not allowed. That's only for incidental reasons as well. So really go through, read SG6, make sure you're fully confident with that. And also make sure you read over, like I said, the 2 most recent Vex QA posts. They're really, really helpful. They also talk about a bunch of match load designs and strategies. It's all on here. What is placing? What is gently? What is onto the robot? So I had some questions regarding this, which were answered as well. So it was helpful for me. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. We have SG8. Stay out of the opponent's goal unless they are double zoned. So we had a couple interesting questions. So first, let's just make sure everyone's on the same stage with what double zoning is. So as you can see, this is not double zoning. There's 1 robot on each offensive zone. This is double zoning, 2 red robots on one side. That would mean that the red goal is open to be descored because they're double zoning. So just keep that in mind. So that's what we're talking about here. What I have seen is one question where people were wondering if the middle bar provides you with whether if you're touching the middle bar, anything matters. So if one of the robots on your alliance or on the other alliance is touching that middle long bar, there is no possibility for them to be double zoned. They use this example right here, a red robot contacting the long barrier. The red alliance is not double zoning, therefore tri-balls and goals are safe. Note, the red robot number 2 is in the red offensive zone still, but they're not double zoning. So I think some people might have got confused by that, where they still look like, at least on the image, that they're in the same zone, but as long as they're touching that bar, it's fine. What does that mean for blue in this example? Well, let's say that blue robot 2 had been fighting with the 2 red robots, and they're like, hey, they're both in this zone, let me go descore. They can, maybe have a mechanism that reaches into the goal and pulls stuff out. That's fine. While they're being double zoned, they might be a small enough robot that they can kind of go in there and try and plow and pull a bunch of stuff out. That's fine. However, the moment the red robot is either touching the middle bar or has moved to the other offensive zone, so they're no longer double zoning, you're not allowed to be in there. So it's a bit of a risky strategy. I'm not going to give you my opinion on how best to do it or anything. That's up to your job to obviously come up with whatever the competitive strategy is. But I will say, just make sure you're being very careful. Make sure that if there is a situation where they're no longer double zoning, if you are then descoring after the double zoning is over, that presents yourself a situation where you could be DQ'd. So just be very cognizant of that kind of stuff. Be aware of it. If there's a mechanism that allows you just to pull tri-balls out of there, that might be a little bit less risky in terms of you be able to disconnect sooner rather than a robot that goes through there. Just make sure you know and you're aware of that rule and you're watching out for it. Interactions, middle bar. Okay, perfect. I think that covered everything. Chico, any questions or are we still good? I'll pause for a sec. Perfect. Okay, going on to the next one. We had some questions regarding SG7. Let's see. So what is possession? How many can we have? Blah, 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 blah. So possession, robots may not have greater than momentary possession of more than one tri-ball. So someone was asking, oh, what happens if I'm like getting match loaded and like another tri-ball like gets flung and like it's like stuck on my robot and I'm match loading? There was actually a really interesting Q&A about what possession is considered. If you are carrying around and moving and maneuvering with two tri-balls, that's going to be possession. So I think one way to kind of like look into SG7 is to kind of delve more into possession to begin with. And once again, it's whether the tri-ball changes in direction by controlled movement of the robot. So you can imagine, concave is, when we're looking at possession for like concave versus convex shapes. So if it's a concave shape where it's kind of forming a little bit of a curve and it's keeping the tri-ball inside of that, that's going to be generally ruled as possession. Whereas if it's a flat surface, or if it's like a triangle facing the other way and it's pushing them away, like more like a plow, that's not going to be considered possession. Even if the tri-ball may move in the same direction, if you're, let's say, just driving straight, if you're turning left or right, that's usually the signifier of whether it's possession, whether it's controlled or not. When we're looking at possession, remember, it's greater than momentary. So you have to really make sure that if you do gain greater than momentary possession of one tri-ball, I've seen some teams get cut out for this in the past. They have to stop everything they're doing. So note this last part. You have to stop everything you're doing and solely focus on attempting to remove the excess tri-balls. That means ramming into a wall, getting your teammate to pull it off you if you can, doing whatever you can. What some teams do is, let's say they get that tri-ball stuck really early in the match. Let's say it's like a minute 15 left or a minute 30 left in the match, and you got two tri-balls stuck, and you're like, wow, I don't want to lose. Some teams will go right into the defensive play and start bashing their opponent to try and prevent them from scoring because you're unable to score. You have to remember that any additional, it says here, continuing to play other portions of the game, including defensive maneuvers, also elevating. This prevents you from elevating as well, while without attempting to remove excess tri-balls, will more than likely result in a violation, right? A match affecting violation. It really depends. Once again, I want to put that on every single one of my statements here today is it all depends. Everything is dependent on circumstance, how egregious it is, intentional versus unintentional. Obviously, it varies by rules, but more often than not, if you are still with two tri-balls in your possession and you're doing a whole bunch of stuff, you're probably going to get a DQ for it. So really, at that point, it's probably better just to not start maneuvering and doing a bunch of defensive maneuvers rather than just getting a DQ at the end of the day. So I think that covers that. Moving on to my next one. We're down to the last couple of them here. Let's see. I have G12. Actually, I'll touch on SG10 really quickly because it popped up here. Everyone should know about the neutral zone on the map, on the match surface. So this is going to be that zone right here. Please be careful when it comes to Auton. Both robots are going to be able to go into their neutral zones. So if blue robot crosses into the neutral zone and red robot is in the neutral zone as well, just make sure that you're being very careful in the sense of none of that is going to be declared as some sort of interference. It's all, just part of the game. So if your robot, let's say, hits another robot and then veers off and crosses the autonomous line and goes off into the other zone, that's going to result in autonomous getting awarded to the other team. So there could be some incidental contact that happens, but it's up to you to make sure that your robot is always under your control. So, it really gives you a bunch of additional information here. Read Section A, read Section B. If you have any specific questions about this, let me know. But when we go to G12, all rules still apply in autonomous period. So the reason I'm highlighting this one is two reasons. One, crossing, like I just mentioned, if you cross into the opponent's zone past the neutral zone, that will result automatically in the autonomous being awarded to the other team, even if you got the most points. It sucks, so don't do that. The other one is violating the plane of the goal for the opponent. So obviously, at the end of the day, if you're blue, and I'll try and go to a thing that has this. Let's see. If you're blue, you can cross the plane of your goal. The plane, remember, the plane is always the flat surface, the imaginary flat surface that goes from the ground up to the bar right here. So you can imagine that's the plane that goes on the outer edge of the PVC pipes. It says right here, that defines the goal's volume. If you're blue, you can enter into your plane whenever you'd like. During autonomous, if you are red, you may not break the plane of the goal whatsoever. So make sure any mechanisms you have aren't like driving themselves into the goal to like be able to like score that point. You want to just be pushing the goal in there and not doing anything else. This is a little bit harder to catch, I think, from my perspective, because the big thing that I'm looking out for as a head ref is, contact in the middle, whether people are crossing, who's getting autonomous, how's the scoring going, all that. I will also be looking out for things like whether the robots are breaking any goal rules like this, where they're like driving into the opponent's goal. And this is mostly to make sure that like no opponents are breaking any of those rules that do exist otherwise in the game. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to forget or, just have this happen because it's autonomous and your robot isn't under your control. But just make sure that any rule that exists during the actual game is also being enforced during the autonomous period. Just because your robot is not currently under your direct control, it's still up to your responsibility. And any violations that happen in autonomous will result in the bonus being awarded to the other team. And speaking of autonomous bonuses, there's two different things. People always ask me the question, what is autonomous win point if autonomous bonus is if you win? So just wanted to quickly touch on the autonomous win point. So autonomous bonus is if you get the highest score during autonomous, which is, just like in the match thing. So you get a little bit extra bonus if you are able to score the most. Autonomous win point is a little bit different. I wish they had this back in my day. I think this is a really great thing. They've had it for the past couple of years. It is an additional WP. Remember, this is a WP point. So very, very highly ranked because it's, I think, WP, AP, SP, I think is the three ranking. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the ranking on that. So obviously win point is what you want the most. So not only can you win autonomous and get some AP if you're really solid and having a really good reoccurring bot, if you get an autonomous win point, another WP, because you only get two if you win the match, and a single one is automatically giving you essentially a tie for every match that you're able to achieve this. You want to really make sure you work with your partner on this. So removing the tri-ball from the alliance's match load zone, I'll get to this in a second, that coincides with their starting tiles. That's one thing you need to do. Scored at least one alliance tri-ball, and I really want to hype on this because some people have missed this previously, in the alliance's own goal. So I'll get to that, but make sure you remember it's in the alliance's own goal. And ended the autonomous period with at least one robot contacting their own elevation bar. So I will try and get to here. So yeah, where's a good photo of the... Here we go. So if anyone has any questions, so what that means is one of the things you need to do is if the red team is starting down here, they are removing one of the tri-balls in the match load zone. They also have to score one of their alliance tri-balls in their red zone. Remember, in their red zone. So if you're putting your alliance tri-ball in the blue zone, that's not going to count for the win point. So make sure you remember that. And then you also have to finalize and touch the elevation bar. That could be either the vertical or the horizontal, right? It up, like whatever you choose to do. Watch out for elevation and expansion and all that as well, but just keep that in mind. I will pause for 1 second because my throat is starting to go. Chiku, any questions, anything up to this point? I only have one left.
Yeah, we have one question in the chat. Someone's asking, what's the rule of throwing tri-balls out of the field unintentionally?
Okay, good question actually. So when it comes to tri-balls that are shot out of the field, fall out of the field, for whatever reason end up out of the field, please do not touch them unless otherwise instructed. The thing I will be asking you to do is just to leave them there, and then either myself or one of the other refs can go out there and grab the try ball and then put them back. Unlike last year's games where they would just be put back wherever the closest they came out from, this year the try balls are only being returned to one of the 4 match load zones. So one of the 4 zones here. The only exception to that, the only exception where the drive team would actually gain control essentially of the try ball itself, is if I'll double check this, but my understanding is that if a try ball gets stuck on one of the nets and was not coming down from there, which I believe then they can be reclaimed and put back into the match load. I'll double check on that, but those are the only circumstances where the try balls can be reclaimed and kind of put back into the match load zone, but or match load box to be match loaded. But otherwise, if they're sent out unintentionally, I mean, it's a game where everyone has flywheels and catapults and stuff like that, so it's kind of expected. If it's recurrent, if you're just trying to like I don't know, make me get like a nice run in, or any of the refs distract us, I mean, I might talk to you and say, hey, that's the 5th one you've shot out in the last 5 seconds, maybe slow that down, right? But otherwise, I'm not going to be putting too much thought into that. Let me go on to this really quickly. So we had a couple more questions come into our and wrap that. Okay. So we already covered a lot of these questions. So what is the rule for pinning? We talked, so I'll, if someone has this specific question, whoever put this one in, you can message me afterwards and we can talk about it. I believe what the issue with this one was SG11, which caused the violation in this video. The robot was touching the short barrier, and that I think is what caused the DQ, not the fact of tipping. I will really quickly touch on just contact. Make sure it's a offensive game, so if you're playing defensively, be careful. Offensive robots always have the benefit of the doubt. That's the only thing I'll touch on that regarding that point, but otherwise, everyone's out there. Make sure your robot doesn't fall apart if it gets touched like once. There's a certain expectation that your robot is able to, withstand a little bit of like punishment. But otherwise, if you're like egregiously going around and trying to like rip people's wires out, then that's something I'll probably have to step in for. Let's see. Do you get a DQ if you non-intentionally have 2 try balls? No. If you're continuing to do other actions, though, yes. If you don't, if you have greater than momentary possession of them, that also can be DQ depending on what you're doing. So yeah, just be careful with that. Already talked about the double zoning touching the middle bar. SG6. Oh, that's a good question, actually. I don't know if someone just put that in there. You go to that one. Remember, this is just for match loads. So if there's already try balls on the field or in the match load zone, you can't reach into the field and ever grab something and pull out of it. Just think anything on the field, no touch at all. Everything on the field stays on the field. That includes the setup for the matches as well. If you notice like, hey, one of the try balls is like way off, let me know, let one of the setup volunteers know, let one of the other scorekeeper refs know. We can, try and fix it. Remember, we do have a certain amount of variance allowed. So if it's off by 1 centimeter and your auton is going to be affected by it being off by 1 centimeter, we also have a schedule to keep. So maybe I'm not going to be adjusting everything within pinpoint precision. But if it's off by like the entire, like 2 tiles, yeah, flag it to me and we'll fix it, right? Otherwise, if something is on the field, you can't pick it up, pull it off the field, and put it in your match load box. That's not allowed. Good. I'm glad you have no questions. Does it count? Is this one already wrapped or no? Does it count if the try ball is halfway under the net? I'm not sure what is that your rule you're referencing. I think that's just asking me regarding the scoring of try balls, which I can go up to. Generally, the rule of thumb is going to be 2 of the points of the try ball. Let me go up to the scoring. Where's the scoring section? Scoring. And one of the things, I'll just give you a quick tip as I'm pulling this up. Here we go. If you have any questions regarding the game, when I was a student as well, one of the biggest resources, obviously head ref is great. Another great resource is other teams. If you show up there and you're like, hey, I'm just trying to understand something. Can you explain how this works on the field or whatever? Other teams are usually great resources as well. They know the game just like you guys. They have a vested interest in knowing. So feel free to ask them as well. But obviously, I'm also available. Here's a great example of what counts as scored and what doesn't count as scored. As you can see, there's only 1 point on the try ball that is inside, breaks the plane of the goal. That does not count as scored. As long as there's 2 points that are inside, that will count as scored. So check SC3, but it outlines how it is there. 2 corners is what it's called. At the start of the match, which try ball's positions am I allowed to adjust? None of them. Well, I mean, yes, actually. Any of the ones on the field, you're... okay, actually, I'll retract that. Sorry. You can adjust some. The ones I'm talking about that you're not allowed to adjust are the ones that are like in the middle of the field. There was a Q&A that ruled on the try balls in your match load zone. So that is a good question. If it is in the match load zone, which I will show you guys once again. This is the match load zone, those little triangle areas. You are allowed to adjust those to wherever in the match load zone best fit for you. So if you have an Auton that really likes it in like the deepest, darkest corner over in the thing, and that's how your Auton works, and that's how best grabs it to pull it out of there and do it, that's fine. You're allowed to adjust that. And also you have a starting alliance try ball that you have to either you have on your robot, touching your robot, whatever. So those ones you're obviously allowed to adjust because you're placing your alliance try ball. And then also the one that's in the match load zone, you're able to replace that because we're going to set it in the standard spot. And then you can adjust that to wherever you'd like. The acorns in my match load zone, the match load zones on our sides are start. So I hope that answers your question. I think I covered both of those. I think that's all this question is. Let's see. Which line can you not cross an Auton? Good question. I don't know if you can tell my voice is really starting to go, but I will keep trucking. I worked today as well. I was talking with a bunch of people, so my voice is just dying a little bit. So as you see here, I just wanted to pull up the neutral zone just so we can have an idea of what this looks like. So there's the standard autonomous line. If you were here last year, you would have known the autonomous line is that line that's basically, I think it was last year's game, that's drawn across the field. You cannot cross that line. That was how it was last year. A little bit of an innovation on how it is this year. So remember, you one of the rules is that if you're Red Alliance, you cannot just like drive across the offensive zone into your other offensive zone. You have to stay on your offensive zone, otherwise you'll lose autonomous. So that's one key point to understand. The second key point to understand is this neutral zone. So you're allowed to go into the neutral zone to the very end. So I'm using this one, and then I'll get to the white lines. You're allowed to go into the neutral zone to the very end. So this is the hard and fast autonomous line for the red offensive side. For the blue offensive side, this is the hard and fast line. So if you're blue, if you're on the blue offensive line, you're allowed to go all the way up to the end of this offensive zone. Remember, it's very important. It's a 2D touch. And what I mean by 2D touch is that this is not a 3D thing. So if you have an overhang, that is fine. If you have a 2D, so if your wheel is touching past the neutral zone, that's where I'll consider you crossed. So just remember that. It's a 2D touch, not a 3D overhang. And if there's any incidental contact between the two robots in those zones, that's just part of the game. Let me try and find, there we go. This is a white line of it right there. So autonomous line is the double line. You can go up to the single line on both sides. So you can go up to that, and you can go up to that. Hope that answers your question. If you have any more questions regarding that, let me know. But it should be pretty straightforward. Can we use our alliance preloads during autonomous? I think that the question, so when you mean can we use them, like can you like load them on your robot? Can you move them around? Yeah, like the alliance tri-balls are of course can be used in autonomous. You want to use them so you can score and possibly get your autonomous win point. I'm not sure if you mean in like a different way of using them, like you can like hold them off to the side in like your match load box or like save them for something else. You want to make sure that all those alliance tri-balls are going to be placed. I can pull up the placement rules. Alliance tri-ball. Preload an alliance tri-ball, which is loaded. Let's see. When loaded into a robot prior to the match, SG4. Each robot gets one alliance as a preload prior to the start of each match. They may be used when placed as such. They may be contacting one robot of the same color as the preload, not contacting the same robot as another preload. and fully within the field perimeter. So, and if the team does not wish to use their preloads, or if they're not red, they can be used as match load. Exactly. So let me just basically go here. So if you're a robot that's starting in the red zone here, if you're a red alliance, you can have it touching the side of your robot there. You could have it inside your robot, let's say on a catapult ready to be fired. Or you can just keep it off entirely in your match load box, and you can use it as one of your ones later. Obviously, with the autonomous win point, that's not exactly incentivized. You want to be probably using those to score or get more points. But of course, that's always still an option as well. Can both, let me see the wrap here. Can both teams win the autonomous win point if they get all 3 requirements? Absolutely. That's the one great thing about it. You could have both teams win their autonomous, or sorry, get their autonomous win point. And effectively, what that means is that if both alliances are able to do that right off the bat, you're both effectively walking away from a match that's already a tie, which is a really great position to be starting the rest of your match in. You have 1:45 seconds to hopefully get up to 3 win points, which is like a great scenario. Remember, because it's 2 win points for a win. Obviously, you don't get any win points for a loss, and then 1 win point for a tie. So, if you effectively tied the match after that, you'd both effectively walk away with a win. If you win the match after that, you walk away with like a super win. So ideally, for both of you, you both are able to get the win point. Obviously, at the end of the day, there might be additional contact or stuff that happens in neutral zones, or your autonomous doesn't work, or whatever various reason that causes people not to do that. I don't think I've seen a video where both teams have gotten the win point just yet, besides like some very exceptional ones out of the US. So yeah, I'd love to see it. I think that is all the questions for now. I love how they kept coming in. There's one more after each time I looked in there, so that was great. Yeah, I think that is everything. If anyone else has any, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we have one question. Someone asking if the starting tiles are 2D or 3D, like the starting position on the starting tiles.
Perfect. Okay, let me pull up the starting zone. So one of the gray foam tiles alongside, so just want to show the starting locations again. So these are the starting tiles here. And when it comes to the starting, you need to make sure that it's a 2D. So here, let me go to, that's the robot skills. Robot skills, starting in your own zone. There we go, that G5. So at the beginning of each match, each robot must be smaller than the 18 by 18 by 18, right? And then also on top of that, where's the other one? Starting volume, I want the other one as well. Stay in your own autonomous, starting a match. Where's the rule for that one? Yeah, so you have to stay within the starting volume, within the starting tiles. It's a 2D touch, so you can't be physically touching. I guess I can just go to it and show you, but you have to be physically touching that tile. You can't be, for example, if you're starting on these zones, you can't be touching one of the other tiles. You have to be starting in those tiles themselves. And like I said, during autonomous, you're not allowed to then proceed to another offensive zone. So it's important that whenever you're choosing your initial tile to start on, let's say you're Red Alliance and you really want to score your win point and get the win in autonomous, one of the things you should probably ask is to make sure that whether your team or the other team that you're paired up with through your alliance during qualification matches has a great autonomous that can score that, because you want to be able to get your alliance tribal into that goal. Ideally, they can pull out one of their tribals from the starting area, and you're able to get to the elevation zone. So you're going to be starting in those tiles at a 2D touch. You don't, unlike a couple years ago, it used to be, oh, you have to start with your robot touching the wall. That's no longer the case. I think that was a couple years ago. So you have to be within that tile, but you don't have to be touching the perimeter wall anymore. I hope that was good. Hope that clarified it. Anything else, Chiku, or is that it? I have one last thing, or two last things I'll touch on. If there's no more questions, then we'll wrap it up.
All right. Well, there's nothing in the chat right now, so yeah, you can start wrapping it up, and if anything comes in, I'll let you know.
Perfect. Okay. Just a reminder,
actually,
if you. Oh.
I want to add something after. So all right.
Yeah, you can take it away if you want. Go ahead.
No, you can wrap this part up, and then I want to add something about the tournaments.
Okay, perfect. So just as a rule of thumb, I don't want to be going out there on Saturday and disqualifying. Disqualifying sucks because one, it's paperwork. I have to write down that I gave you a warning, like a minor violation, major violation. I have to determine whether it's match affecting, especially when we're getting into eliminations. The most sucky part is when a great match happens and then something causes a DQ and then all that's kind of thrown out the window. Because remember, qualifying, you might get disqualified and that might not affect your alliance partner. But if you're in eliminations, if you get DQ'd, that affects both of you, and that's not fun. So just for a rule of thumb, and I'll reiterate this, on Saturday, especially when we're going into the elimination elimination period, that you really have to be on your ball and just trying your best to look out for these kind of things. And I'll try my best to inform you before it reaches a scenario where it's going to reach like a major violation. Like if you're possessing more than one thing, or if you're getting really close to a holding, I will try my best to let you know that something is coming. But at the end of the day, it's up to you guys to make sure that you're staying away and following the rules. The rule of here is like minor violation, major violation, match affecting. And if you want to see how I'm going to interpret things, this is the flow chart that Vex prescribes of like, was it like, I have to go through this in my head, essentially saying, was it match affecting? Did they break this rule before? Was this a big violation? Blah 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 blah. So just try and look at it from my perspective too, of like me not trying to disqualify you at all times. I will be keeping track during the tournament of every single minor violation and major violation that happens. So if you are accruing a lot of minor violations, that will not help in terms of that might lead to, as it says right here, that can lead to a DQ, even just a bunch of minor violations, because they can kind of just add up if they've happened in a bunch of different matches. And we're expecting, I'm not sure, I think it's like what, 5 or 6 matches on each for qualification on Saturday, Chiku. I'm not sure what the amount is, but quite a few. So just be on the lookout. And then finally, I always like to wrap up the driver meeting, and I appreciate everyone. It's a Wednesday night. Everyone's taking time to join this driver meeting. I really appreciate it, all the turnout. So my last point is, look at the safety rules, S1, S2, S3, S4. Always wear safety glasses, be safe. I'll call out anything that I don't think is safe, but just try your best. I wish you guys the best of luck, and I look forward to chatting with you more on Saturday.
So just before we end, Aiden, one last question. What about the 20 green tri-balls each alliance has? Can we use those during autonomous? So that's just a short, simple one.
Sorry, say that one more time. I didn't quite hear that.
What about the 20 green tri-balls each alliance has? Can we use those during autonomous?
Oh, I think they're referring to the match load tri-balls.
Yeah, I think
so that's a good question. So match load tri-balls are only to be used during the driver control period. So if you currently have a strategy that says, oh, I want to use those during autonomous to do a whole bunch of stuff, please don't. That is only to be used during that last minute 45 down to 0 section. For the autonomous period, the only thing your robot can do is use that preload alliance tri-ball and to maneuver around with that. As soon as the driver control period starts, you can drive your robot right to the match load zone, make sure it's touching that bar, and then go right into loading and launching the entire rest of your match loads though. So that's perfectly fine. Only driver control.
All right, I'm just gonna take it over now.
Cool.
So, guys, before you guys go ahead, I just want to remind you guys. So the doors open at 8:30. So please try to make it at 8:30. Don't come any sooner because we're gonna be doing setups and it's gonna be hard for us to let you guys in. So please come at 8:30 because that's when the doors are gonna open. Also, reminder: when you're at the tournament, please do not drive your robots on the gymnasium floor because with the wooden floor, they don't want the custodians of school. They don't want any metal robots, anything like that, touching the floor. So don't drive your robots on the floor. And if we see you driving the robots on the floor, we're gonna have to let you know, and there might be some problems. So just in advance, don't drive your robots there. Also, please make sure you're queuing to your match on time because we don't want to get behind the schedule. We're gonna be running on a tight schedule, and it's gonna be important that you guys are there. We're gonna have an announcer in the pits calling you guys over. We're also gonna have queuers to make sure you're on time. So there should be no excuses if you're late. Once again, guys, thank you for joining us. We were trying out the new virtual driver meeting format. It looks like, according to the poll, you guys liked it. It's a little 50-50, but at least this way we were able to go over the rules better and make sure there's no disqualifications happening on the tournament day. So thank you for joining, and I guess we'll see you at the tournament, guys. Good luck.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
Damn, who knew? All the planes we flew, good things we've been through, that I'll be standing right here talking to you about another path. I know we love to hit the road and laugh, but something told me that it wouldn't last. Had to switch up, look at things different, see the bigger picture. Those were the days, hard work forever pays. Now I see you in a better place. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way, from where we began.
You know, we started.
Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
Let me tell you.
When I see you again.
First you both go out your way and the vibe is feeling strong, and what's small turn to a friendship turn to a bond, and that bond will never be broken, the love will never get lost. And when brotherhood come first, then the line will never be crossed. Established it on our own when that line had to be drawn, and that line is what we reach, so remember me when I'm gone. How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I went through, you were standing there by my side, and now you gon' be with me for the last ride.
Don't let the light guide your way. Yeah. Hold every memory as you go, and every road you take will always lead you home. Oh, it's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began.